Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast where a behavioral scientist examines what it's like to live a humorous life. Glimpse into the lives of the funniest people in entertainment, business, and science as your host, Dr. Peter McGraw, explores their habits, motivations, and secrets to success. Get ready to fire up your brain and your funny bone. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast that looks at the lives of funny people. I'm Peter McGraw. Today's guest is Ethan Decker. He's been a researcher, an editor, a journalist, an improviser, and a teacher. And he has a PhD in urban ecology and human evolution. Welcome, Ethan.
Thanks.
It's impressive. Ethan, if you weren't working in marketing, what would you be doing?
Well, long ago, I wanted to be on Broadway. I used to write musicals. I was in musicals. I love the theater. But for some reason, I thought I couldn't handle the big drug habits that seems to come
Is that true?
with the Broadway lifestyle.
Broadway is heavy on drugs?
Well, medium heavy, yeah. Or at least in my, adolescent mind it was. That it was a hard and fast lifestyle.
Oh, that's funny. So it's like rock and roll.
Yep.
Broadway.
And then academia.
And academia. The hard drugs in academia are
yes.
It's caffeine.
Adderall.
Yeah, I guess nowadays.
Yeah.
Nowadays. Wait. So when you were in grad school, were folks using Adderall?
Not intensively. No, not yet.
Yeah, I think it
hadn't blown up.
I feel like when I was in my postdoc, I was starting to notice it. It was kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Well, let's get back to this. So you were a kid.
I was.
And
once.
You strike me as being tall for theater. I have this, it's sort of a pet hypothesis. And it came about, I wrote a blog post a long time ago about why Hollywood actors are so short.
What was your theory?
So the theory was, what I did in it because of who I am, I put forth different hypotheses. And I'll leave the one last that's related to my observation of you. So the first one is that maybe there's something, and I'm going by memory, so there's something about proportions that short people have that look better on screen than tall people. Like tall people look like, I'm like a lot of arms and legs, like a Tim Robbins kind of person. Mm-hmm. That's there. So that was one, is that there's something about beauty that fits into the screen in that way. The second one is that, no, they're not really any shorter than the average person. They just seem shorter when you meet them in person because you're used to seeing them.
They're larger in life in your imagination.
Exactly. And actually, they're even portrayed larger in life. So big name actors will have in their contract that they need to be the tallest person on screen.
Right.
So there's a story in this blog post about, the movie Tropic Thunder has Ben Stiller, who wrote and directed it, and then, Robert Downey Jr. in it, who awkwardly plays an African-American character.
Yes.
And there's a scene in there where they're walking through the jungle next to each other talking. And Ben Stiller is clearly taller than Robert Downey in the scene. But he's not in real life. Actually, I think Robert Downey might be slightly tall. Short people. But what they did was they dug a trench that Robert Downey walked through for the appearance of this.
So that Ben could see him taller.
That's right. And then the third one is that there's something that happens early in life that puts people into different paths. And so the theory is, like, in America, sports are so prominent and so celebrated that kids naturally want to be athletes. But if you're not really a great athlete, you're not that tall, you're not that big, which a lot of athletics rewards, you go into something else that you can be good at. And theater then thus has sort of more petite, diminutive kind of people.
Sure. If you're built like Ben Stiller, you don't go out for rugby.
Exactly.
You do drama.
That's right.
That fits me for sure in many ways.
No, but you're
not height-wise though, but scale-wise.
You're svelte.
I'm thin. Yes.
But you're tall.
I'm 6'1" now.
Yeah, right.
I didn't hit puberty till I was about 22. So all this time, when I wanted to be in theater, I was small. I was a small kid.
Oh.
And I couldn't compete athletically. But there might be another theory, and I don't even know if it's right, because you've got The Rock, and he's a big superstar, and he's a WWE wrestler. And Vince Vaughn, he's 6'8" or 7'5" or something big.
Yeah, he's 6'5".
He's pretty big.
Yeah.
But the other theory I have, it actually comes from having done a little bit of dancing, swing dancing, ballroom dancing, which is eye contact.
Okay.
And it's really hard to have good eye contact and make that connection if one person's a foot and a half taller than the other person.
Right. So you're talking about like for like love stories.
Yeah.
And for conversations and.
Correct.
Yeah.
And film is very much about that intense human drama.
Yes.
And so the personal connection is a big deal.
I like it.
And so you'll see the biggest difference in casual life between couples figure skating and couples ice dancing.
Okay.
Because couples figure skating, the guy towers over the woman. She's petite.
And he flings her around in the air.
Correct. And in fact, the size difference is great. You want a 5'2" ex-gymnast to be your person you fling through the air.
Right.
Whereas couples ice dancing, they're both about 5'6" or 5'7".
Right.
So the guy does have to be probably on the smaller side so that they can look each other eye to eye, and the dance posture just feels much more natural.
Okay. Yeah. That's fun. So you started out in doing theater stuff in high school.
Well, getting excited about that vision of the future. Yes.
And then Broadway. And then, so at what point did the drugs scare you off?
I was medium. I was a pretty straight edge kid.
Okay.
So I was never really into drugs and alcohol.
Were you in like the whole straight edge music thing, the ska stuff and all that kind of
Not
thing?
intentionally.
Okay.
I liked all kinds of music, but certainly the heavy duty Sid and Nancy stuff had a dark and foreboding angle to it that I wanted to avoid.
Okay.
So I don't know. I did a lot of music. I did a lot of musicals, and then went to college, which had a music conservatory attached to it.
Where was that?
Oberlin.
Okay.
So there were professional musicians, real musicians, as well as a bunch of us hacks who were enrolled in the college, but couldn't help ourselves. And we were in bands, or we were in choruses, or madrigal groups, or all kinds of things.
Yeah. Boy, that world is, you think academia is competitive. That world is competitive.
Oh, it's hardcore. And we had a building, had something like 300 Steinway pianos in it, because each one was in its own little practice booth, practice room. And people were in there maybe 12 hours a day. Yeah. Just practicing their heads off.
I saw Whiplash. I know how this works.
Yeah. Yes. Accurate portrayal of all music.
That's based on Berkeley.
Whiplash was.
In Boston. With E's.
Yes.
Not Y. Berkeley. Isn't Berkeley music 2 E's
Correct. Correct. Berkeley Music School.
It's notorious for being
hard.
Cutthroat. Yeah.
Yeah. Oberlin was pretty tough too.
Yeah.
But it didn't have the same reputation as the Berkeley Music School.
Sometimes I go down the YouTube rabbit hole, watching music videos, and then sometimes other things. You can find people this is how it happened recently. I got back into listening to a lot of 70s disco and soul music, and then I watched this documentary about Niles. Oh, what is his last name? The guy from Chic, who then became a producer for all these bands in the 80s, Duran Duran and David Bowie and so on. He's this genius no one knows in America. In any case, so I started, so he helped produce Diana Ross's, one of her big pop albums. I'm Coming Out and, all stuff. And so you can find people doing the bass lines, playing the bass lines on YouTube. I don't know how I found this, but I started.
And these are the original performers?
No, these are just bassists.
Right.
And what I realized was although I never could be a great musician, for some people, it's not that hard.
Right.
And so there's this weird thing in the world of people who could never be good musicians, but then there's actually a ton of people who can.
Yes.
And I was maybe it is harder it's harder in some ways. So it's easier to become a musician than it is to become an academic, but it's harder to become an elite musician than an elite academic.
Because there's a lot of talent.
There's so much competition in that pool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big pool. And the draw is, I would think, bigger.
Yeah.
So,
You think?
I don't know. International fame, people fawning all over you. That's academia in a nutshell, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a lot of talent.
Yeah.
And I think especially with the internet now, and you might have seen things like the Internet Orchestra.
No.
Some guy put together his own orchestra just based on
Who he finds on YouTube.
casting people on YouTube
That's
and saying,
brilliant.
hey, why don't you do this? And he put out the music and people rehearsed their parts, filmed it, recorded it themselves, and then he stitched it all together digitally. And it's, I want to say 1,000 people in the orchestra. That might be an overstatement, but it's in that range.
That's amazing.
Of big.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of stuff has made people realize how much talent there is in the world. And so much of it is untapped, really just based on luck.
Mm-hmm.
Luck of your circumstances, luck of your upbringing, luck of whether or not your parents gave you an instrument when you were 4.
Luck of being a male versus a female.
Luck of being an American versus an Iraqi.
Yeah, given the discrimination.
Precisely.
That happens. Yeah, exactly.
What do they call it? The ovarian lottery.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
which ovary are you lucked into? And that determines so much. But you're right. There's this massive pool of talent. And in music, we're seeing so much of it now that people are self-producing whole albums.
You know, I'm going to turn to something else in a second, but, you know, I went and saw U2's 30th anniversary concert for Joshua Tree.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was really amazing is you can go online and relive the concert with better seats on YouTube, where people edit together hundreds of different shots.
Oh, wow.
I mean, like, I don't know if these are professional editors or not, but you can find dozens and dozens of high quality concert footage from people's phones. Basically, stitching these things together is pretty incredible. Stephanie Johnson, who's my colleague right across the hall, she's an upcoming guest. She talks about blinding these decisions when it comes to music.
Yes.
And in order to level the playing field, like even having the performers, besides not only just auditioning behind a screen, but they ask them to take off their shoes. So they walk barefoot.
So you can't tell heels
versus Oxfords or whatever. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that was a big deal. I want to say when I was in college.
That's when
when they started doing that, because there was still such a massive discrepancy between the number of music students who were female and the number of professional musicians who were female.
Yes. Right.
And they just weren't getting the parts. They weren't getting the role, the seats in the orchestras or symphonies. And when they started auditioning blind, it was pretty instantaneous that women got all of these positions.
As they should.
As they should.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, so you're group strategy director and head of the marketing sciences practice at Crispin Porter. But this sounds like a job you made up. Did you make that job?
I did make up the second piece. First piece they put on the
on the business card.
Yeah, that's the business card. But the second piece is a piece that I kind of added, but I've made it come true.
Okay.
And I did it first of all because it's a bit of what I do when I do marketing is I blend art and science.
Okay.
I am one of 2 PhDs in our company.
Okay.
And one of 2 PhDs I've ever met in advertising, effectively. Okay. So there are not many of us. And so there are a lot of people who run on instinct and gut and belief.
Mm-hmm.
And I bring in a lot of the science. I get known for that. And I had done a fair bit of trying to understand the real science of marketing and advertising in my previous roles. So I've added that moniker to what I do. And it's kind of an informal thing, but it's accurate. People. Yeah, it's the truth.
You're not going to get fired for saying it.
No.
So you have a TEDx talk.
Yep.
On what evolution can tell us about advertising. This is you bringing the science together with the practice.
Yep.
And what you do in that talk is you show how like animals are advertisers, so to speak. So what's your favorite example of animals as advertisers?
Well, one of the ones I use in the talk, which is one of my favorites, is elk, because they're here in Colorado as well. You can hear them bugling, you can see them rutting, you can see them sometimes even fighting. But the example is that the bull elk, the male, grows 40 pounds of antler each season. well, the mature males. The immature males, they can only grow 10 pounds or so. And that's a lot of bone to be growing in one season of your life, if you think about it. Of course, elk are much bigger than us, but still. And those enormous antlers are mostly for display. Mm-hmm. They rarely fight. They do sometimes get into a little tussle with another male if they're fighting over a harem or fighting over females, because that's what it's all about. Okay. It's advertising to other males how strong and virulent they are and how much you shouldn't mess with me if I've got the bigger antlers. Mm-hmm. And it's advertising to the females how strong and virulent you are. And yes, you want to come be part of my harem and mate with me.
It's the big stick. Carry a big stick. It's
a big stick. Yeah. Yes. I mean, the classic example, of course, is peacocking. Yes, that's what we call it.
Right.
But I like the antlers because you grow them every year. And there's something pretty dramatic about that. And so that's a great example of an animal marketing itself to others. And the way I talk about it in the talk and the way I've been thinking about it is what they're really advertising is their genetics and their diet. Mm-hmm. And other animals will advertise things like their social status too. Mm-hmm. But genetics and diet are pretty core for almost every animal on the planet. And so how do you advertise genes? Well, you advertise it through the visible things that you can display that are driven by good genes, like strong, healthy antlers and a nice pelt and a big bugle. That's the call that the elk make.
Okay.
So all of those outward symbols and signs are to show off to females that you've got good genes and that you've had a good diet.
Okay.
You're not sickly and, coughing and hacking and wheezing when you're supposed to be bugling to attract all the babe elks.
I see. But you also talk about false advertising too.
Oh, yeah. That happens a ton.
Because these things are, these are automatic associations. The female elks or the female whatevers are not consciously thinking, boy, that guy's got a great rack, right?
Right.
In that way.
Correct.
So because animals are associative creatures, even we are associative creatures, but them more so because they don't have that system to thinking like we do.
Right.
They can't correct in the same way. So how does false advertising happen?
Oh, false advertising happens a ton as well. The easiest example, again, a local one, is there's a rattlesnake, the Western diamondback rattlesnake, which has a rattle and it goes, and that's at the end of its tail, and then it bites you and it has venom.
Okay.
And so the rattle warns you that it will kill you if you step on it.
Okay.
That's the truth in advertising. And then the deception in advertising is the bull snake, which is very similar looking. It has evolved to mimic the look of a rattlesnake, but it also has evolved to mimic the sound, but it does it with its mouth, just like I did. So it makes a rattling sound with its mouth to copy a real rattler to avoid getting stepped on or eaten.
Fascinating.
By predators or other creatures.
So how are you taking, okay, let's step back for a second. What is urban ecology?
Nobody knows.
It makes it easier to get a PhD then.
Yeah.
So what is urban ecology? And then how do you make the transition from urban ecologist to, strategy director, etc.?
So there are two ways to think about urban ecology. Okay. One is looking at ecology in an urban place. So counting butterflies.
What's ecology then?
Ecology is looking at the system of plants and animals, fungi and bacteria, and all the critters in a specific place, like in a city.
I see.
What is in
a rainforest?
Yeah.
But you're saying
in a pond.
In a pond, I see.
You can have a whole ecosystem in one pond.
Okay, I see. And then an urban one is to look at it within a city.
Right.
I see.
Right. And humans have brought so many other creatures in, and then there are a bunch of creatures attached to us, like mice and rats and fruit flies and pigeons. So there's a whole ecosystem in a city that doesn't exist just outside the city.
Right.
And in the West, we add tons of trees, we add tons of moisture, and we bring in other critters. So we are these little oases in otherwise arid environments without these critters and trees, and it's dry grasslands.
Yeah. So for listeners, if you're in Boulder, you get used to the fact that, like, sometimes a bear wanders into town, or a mountain lion comes down and snatches some dogs, or
right.
Whatever, or the prairie dogs that create problems where half the people want to get rid of them, and half people want to pet them.
This year's been a real weird bumper crop of rabbits in our town in Boulder, and it's probably actually way up the food chain that the rabbits' predators have been
the coyotes.
removed. The coyotes. And they might have been removed either because wolves are back and wolves are scaring the coyotes away, or because we've overhunted the coyotes, or maybe they fell sick and they got decimated by a virus.
Okay.
So that's one way people do urban ecology, is to look at the critters and count them and see how they interact. The way I looked at it was more like a chemist.
Okay.
Which is, assume the whole city is a big sphere or a big blob, and there's materials coming in and energy coming in and materials going out and energy going out. So net, how much carbon is coming into the city and out of the city? Net, how much nitrogen or oxygen or water comes in and goes out? So this ecosystem level measurement also gives you a way to understand what the ecosystem is doing.
I see.
And in our case, in humans, with urban ecosystems, we bring in tons of water, and in a lot of cities, we purify it before we spit it out. We bring in tons of carbon in the form of, two things: building materials and fuel. And then, so a lot of the building materials gets built into the city in the form of aggregates and concrete. It's a big one. And then a lot of that carbon gets burned in the form of fuels, especially gas. And that goes up into the atmosphere. So if you look at the world from way, way up high, you've got all these dots of gases coming out of each city. Each city is like belching these fumes into the global ecosystem.
Okay, I see this.
So I was measuring and examining how energy flowed in and out of cities.
Sounds like the kind of work that needs Adderall.
Yeah, a lot.
A lot of spreadsheets, a lot of modeling.
Exactly. It's very quantitative. That's actually one of the reasons I decided to jump ship and get into advertising.
So that's unusual, So I live in a world where we're focused training people to be academics. So it would be unpopular to be a graduate student in my program and be like, see ya, I'm going off and doing consulting, or I'm going off and going to work in marketing, because the investment, this program is designed to create little professors who grow up into big professors.
Right.
When did you decide that? Was it welcome? Did you hide it? How did this happen?
It was certainly not fashionable to leave academia. And this was the turn of the century. By
the way, most people can't leave academia. So congratulations on your ability to do that.
Yes. Hotel University of California. You can check out, but you can never leave.
Exactly.
So it wasn't fashionable. I was, first of all, just antsy and itchy to look at other things, because I had studied culture and identity politics and society and things like that in undergrad. So I was really into that. My major was sociology. And then I was lucky to have a professor who was open to doing things outside of the normal academic track. He was not as motivated as most.
Was he older?
No. So it was interesting. I think he had just started to realize the world is bigger than publishing and teaching. And a lot of academics don't realize that, because that's how you're judged. And you think of the world in the way that you are judged and the metrics you're working against. So he was more open to it. And then I looked, kind of under the sheets a little bit and saw that roughly half of academics don't stay in academia. And roughly 10% of them actually get professorships, which is, of course, the pinnacle and ultimate thing you're supposed to get, because they're in high demand.
Yes, that's right.
So
you're doing math. You're good at looking ahead and being like, this doesn't seem as good as it does at first.
Yeah. And I didn't know enough about what other opportunities there could be in the world of academia or science to stay in it, to think, well, maybe I could be a communications expert when it comes to math, or I could be a policy person. Maybe I could help run labs or run organizations that are related to science or affiliated with science or publishers in the world of science. Because I love ecology. You have to like something or a lot to do a PhD in it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I didn't love all of the computer coding I was doing and thinking that my track was more and more analytical and more quantitative. So at some point I said, well, maybe I should see what else there is out there.
And how'd you end up, one of your first jobs was with 72 Degrees and Sunny?
72 and Sunny.
72 and Sunny, the ad agency, Southern California.
Yes.
LA-based ad agency.
Yep, that was my first advertising gig.
And how'd you get that?
I got that because I had been doing marketing research, which I fell into through Fancy Pants Skate Night. Yeah, that's how these things happen. It's not resumes and monster.com. It's going to Fancy Pants Skate Night and drinking at Connor O'Neill's pub. And that's how you get a job.
That's the Irish bar. It's still
there.
Irish bar here in Boulder.
But yes, pro tip for all of you aspiring career people is go out drinking with people, go to things you wouldn't expect.
This is the second story that's come up from someone in this world who basically got a job because he was drinking around a campfire and being a smart ass.
It's networking. Mm-hmm. It's learning about the people you don't even know exist. So through Fancy Pants Skate Night, I got this gig as a market researcher doing qualitative research around the world, interviewing people, focus groups, in-home interviews. And that was really fun. And one of my projects was for 72 and Sunny, which was a fledgling agency, about 20 people at the time. And my client was the head of strategy over there, Greg Perlott. And the project went really, really well. It was super fun. I got to use my theories of society and culture from my undergrad, a little more than my theories of biology and evolution. But we came up with some neat things, and Greg said, hey, do you know any strategists who might want to work at 72? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And I said, no. And he said, no, poke, poke.
Have another beer.
Have a beer, nudge, nudge. Hello, do you know any strategists? I said, oh.
Is that
me?
Is that frowned on to poach from that you hire someone as a consultant and then steal them away from that company?
No, that's quite common.
Okay.
I think it's most frowned upon when it's a complete direct competitor or someone you just left. So if I were to leave Crispin and start a new agency.
You mean when you leave Crispin?
All things do end. This is true. We don't know when. Could be today, could be in 30 years. But yeah, so anyway, Greg said, come to LA and work for me. And I said, I don't think we can move out of Colorado. We just kind of got here and my wife really likes it. And he said, great, do it from Boulder. So I opened up 27 and Snowy, the cold research arm of 72 and Sunny. Made t-shirts for the whole team, of course, and got into advertising. And got a great lesson in advertising from some of the best in the industry.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think what's interesting about the world of advertising is, and I'm not going to say anything that disparages Crispin, Porter, and Bogusky, but, they these ad agencies rise and fall. They're the hot agency and everybody wants them. And then, absolutely. And then everybody realized that there's sort of a commoditization of advertising and then you go, oh, there's someone else. And there's it's like moths on a flame, trying to find the magic. Yep. And the magic doesn't always last. And right.
Yeah, it's a mix of trends in what people think advertising should do and how they think it works. So, we need the crazy madmen of Madison Avenue. I want the brilliant, Don Draper.
The outsiders who...
Right.
Yeah.
I need outsiders. I need jugglers and, people who used to be street magicians. And I need those people. Or else, no, I need traditionally trained MBAs. And then sometimes there's a trend of, we need quants. We need all the quants now because it's all big data and advertising is all quantitative and digital now. So there are trends in marketing. But connected to that, I like to say it's a lot like sports, like football. It's about fielding the best team, and that's a talent game. And so to some extent, advertising, yes, it has different flavors, but for a lot of the same stuff, let's say you're doing big TV spots for the big marketing firms, you want to field the best team. And which agency has the best team at any given moment, that comes and goes,
Yeah,
and you've got some dynasties, and you've got some, dark horses. And once in a while, some agency comes out of nowhere, and suddenly they're the next big thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, and
the
it
Detroit
only takes a
Pistons.
couple big wins to become the hot agency.
Right.
So I want to ask you something. So we'll stop talking about the different companies you work for in a moment. But you worked at Integer Group,
Yes.
which is down in Denver.
Yep.
Now they specialize in shopper insights, which I think is rather interesting, especially nowadays. People have opinions about retail, the death of retail, the mall is dying out, all these things. And I'm curious what you think of as you think about retail. What are your thoughts? What's what do you think's happening? And if I force you to make a prediction, what does it look like?
Retail is definitely in a weird spot.
Okay.
But I don't think it's dying. It's morphing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as an ecologist, this is another piece of it.
This is why I asked you this.
I take a long view. I take a really long view. Like, we've only had stores for the past 200 years. So as a species, it's not like 200 years is a really long time. 200 years is barely, the blink of an eye when it comes to culture, much less the species. So stores have taken all different forms in the past 200 years. And we might think, oh, they're dying, but really they're going to morph. Because we had the era of the mall. That's the most recent kind of death, the indoor mall. Because we have plenty of outdoor malls all over the country now, and it's called new urbanism. So you've got the same stores. It's Guess, and it's Foot Locker, and it's Dick's Sporting Goods, and J. Crew. But you're walking down a street, and it feels like a street. And the only way you know it's a mall is it's the same stores, and they're piping music into the sidewalks. So it's not really a street. But
so the principles are the same. It's just whether it's covered or not covered.
For the malls, yeah, in this case. But the notion of retail changing, that's the bigger picture. And retail isn't going away. Stores aren't going away because people still like to touch and feel things. It's really hard to try things on. And all the shipping, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's a pain in the ass, frankly.
Yeah, it's
Can
why
I say that on
shoes. Yeah.
Okay,
This has an E rating for explicit.
Okay.
Trust me, when I have comedians on here, they say much worse things.
I'll bet they do. So things are changing. Warby Parker has stores.
I know, right on the east side of Pearl.
Right here in town.
Yeah.
They have one. Amazon bought a major grocer.
Indeed.
And they want to have brick and mortar. So Walmart is one of the biggest e-com players, really because they have this amazing physical distribution network called stores.
That's right. Yeah.
So
and also in urban centers that are easy to get something from point A to point B.
Absolutely.
Walmarts are close to where houses are.
Right. Now, people who have more money than they know what to do with and no time to do anything with it, they're going to probably shop everything online from the comfort of their walled home. Their fenced community. But a lot of people like to go out, like to shop, like to see the city, like to get out in the evenings. And stores and commerce are a big part of that. So I don't think they're really dying as much as they're morphing and they're changing.
Yeah, I agree. I actually agree. I talk about this in my class a lot. It comes up naturally. I'll give you my big prediction is I actually think retail is going to get better as a result of all of this, that it's going to become more experiential. It's going to become more fun. It's going to become more enjoyable, and easier, right?
Yeah.
If you think about the 200 years, the model's not that different. There's a cashier at the front of the store.
Right.
And there's shelves and, aisles and, and so on.
The old Woolworth store,
exactly,
so to speak.
It's not that much. These things are not that much. Like the big one is grocery stores.
Yeah.
I worked in a grocery store when I was 13. It was like one of my first jobs, a stock boy. Whole Foods is not that much different.
Nope.
I mean, you can grab food ready to eat. That's the major one, and it's faster to check out.
Right.
But the layout of the store, the experience of the store is more or less the same.
It's still about moving inventory.
Indeed.
And so, and it's funny that you would say entertaining because there are two aspects of that, or better, or more fun. One of them is, frankly, can you really be fully entertained, have full-on recreational entertainment in a store. And some places you can, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the other piece of it is it just easier and more enjoyable because there's less friction and less frustration?
Mm-hmm.
Is there someone to talk to? Is there a way to check out? Do you have to stand in line? So a good example, this is a little example though, Nordstrom's, let's take Nordstrom Rack. They've got the checkout lines and they've got the usual people running around helping you. But when the checkout lines get big, their sales associates are empowered to just check people out in the middle of the aisles at random places.
Mm-hmm.
So they can just use their little handheld device to scan your 3 or 4 items and then run your credit card right there and let you just shoo out the door. So you don't have to stand in line behind 30 other people. Just makes it a little easier, more frictionless. And those kinds of things. Well, maybe you don't want to stand in line. Maybe you know what you want. You've picked it out. Can you just ship it home for me?
I know, yeah.
I just want to put it in your arms. You take all the stuff and you bag it up and pack it up and ship it to my home. I don't need it until this weekend anyway. So that's easy. It's not necessarily entertainment, but it makes stores more enjoyable.
It does make you feel important. And there is something about regular everyday people are really trying to feel important in the world because the world regularly makes them feel unimportant. And so brands help you make you feel important, and makeovers help you make you feel important, and driving a nice car makes you feel important.
It's true.
And so being treated like that makes you feel important.
Yeah.
And I think so that's not entertainment per se, but that's the value add versus the removing the negative.
And it's kind of where it should go. I don't know which retailers are going to really do this the best, but when you automate things and the robots come to take the lowly retail jobs like stock boy or checkout person, all your checkout people are disappearing as self-checkout machines are installed. Those people should be moved up the chain of value to do more for you in the way they have at my favorite example of automation, which is the airport check-in kiosk. I think that was like a 30-person company that built those and started to do that for 30 million people a day. I mean, can you imagine 30 people serving 30 million a day? Wow. And no one needed an instruction manual. There was no training for how to use those damn things. You walk up and it tells you how, and you touch some things.
Those things are better than supermarket checkout.
Oh yeah, they're seamless.
Quite good. Yes.
Now, granted, it's a lot. There are fewer SKUs at the airport. You don't have to know if it's Meyer lemons or organic lemons.
That's fair, but still.
Yeah. Is it a 12 count of mega rolls or a 16 count of jumbo rolls of your toilet paper?
Fair.
But all the folks at the airports thought, well, their jobs are going to be displaced. And to some extent, yes, I guess if a company can save costs on labor by using machines instead of people, they'll probably cut some people. Which is unfortunate because instead, those people could go around basically sprinkling travel pixie dust on people by saying, "Hi, can I help you? Hi, can I fill out that bag tag for you? Oh, where are you traveling today? Oh, hi, Sonny. Here's a lollipop for you." Mm-hmm. And they can move up the value chain and offer more personal service and make travelers feel more important and make it more human and leave the basic checking in and counting how many bags and whether or not you have any explosives to the robots.
Yeah, indeed. The reason this is top of mind for me was I just spent some time in Dubai. And if you spend any time in Dubai, you go to the Dubai Mall. And, the Dubai Mall is an experience. There's an aquarium in the place. And, there's a water show and light show outside of it. And people need that third place. Yes. In Dubai because it's 105 degrees a lot of the time.
In the shade. And there's no shade.
Yeah, exactly. So you go to the mall as a family. You go to the mall on a date. Right. This is something, and that very clearly there's an entertainment component.
Absolutely.
To it. Okay, so I want to do some things more rapid fire because there's a lot of things I want to chat with you about.
Okay.
And so what are you best at? Don't be humble.
What am I best at? I've been told I take a lot of info, and not only do I somehow have it on hand and squeeze it out of my brain at the right moment, but I can do it in a way that is friendly, gentle enough not to scare people off. So I can take complex things and I can squirt them out in a kind of simple way.
So I agree with that. in part, so I've had you speak in my class half a dozen times,
Yep.
I'd say. And one of the things I like what you do, not only in your performance as a speaker, you might be my top speaker in terms of theatrics.
Oh.
I will say that.
That's pretty high praise if theatrics are really...
Theatrics matter.
Yes, they do.
I think that they matter quite a lot. And you're very good about keeping your material simple. So you bring this energy and entertainment, but then you also have very strong takeaways. I think that's consistent with this. Now, of course, I'm only seeing you in a thin slice of life, but also I've noticed it with your writing. Your writing has punch to it. Even the bio that you gave me, and you've given me edits on things that really have just raised the energy of the writing, which is not easy to do.
No. Well, and being in the world of persuasion, whether it's persuading consumers to buy a razor blade or persuading your clients to buy an advertising idea, we're kind of slow on the uptake if we don't really realize all those people on the other end really would rather watch Game of Thrones or The Ellen Show or stuff that's got punch and stuff that's entertaining and stuff that shocks the shit out of you or stuff that makes you laugh or cry. So why do we suck all of that out when we, quote, educate people? Yes. And whether that's educating our consumers about the latest benefits of our bottled water because it's pH balanced, whatever the hell that means, or whether we're trying to educate our workforce or educate our students.
Indeed, yes. So,
yeah, it's like the spoonful of sugar metaphor is massive and way underused.
I agree. I think my teaching got way better when I just doubled the energy that I brought to the teaching.
Yeah. I call it, I do a lot of workshops and work sessions, and instead of being masters of ceremony, the MC, now I just say I'm the ME, the master of energy. Because ceremony is kind of a dorky word. I don't know what that means anymore. But
and hip hop has MC. MC got the MC.
ME might be too me. But the notion is like I manage the energy in the room, and that means putting on music during the break times, or making people laugh, or handing out chocolate, dark chocolate, not the crappy milk chocolate. Yeah.
What are you working on right now that you're excited about?
Oh, a couple things. I'm working on some new ideas for a new restaurant client.
Okay.
I don't know if we can announce who yet.
It's going to be 20 weeks before this thing comes out anyways.
20 weeks. That might be safe. That might be safe. It's TGI Fridays.
Oh, you've talked to me about this offline.
Yes. So
I love this idea.
I don't want to tell the whole idea, but I do want to say that I'm really excited because the problem is juicy and we feel like we've hit on a way out. And the juicy problem is, of course, chain restaurants are sucking it right now. I mean, they're the butt of all jokes, whether it's Applebee's or whether
Chili's.
it's the Chili's or the endless apps or the breadsticks, all these places that are chain restaurants that brought a lot of energy to the malls in the 80s.
Yes, indeed.
And now are just not as cool as your local place opened by the new winner of Chopped who came back home, all these celebrity chefs.
Yeah, or even these places that are sort of quasi-chain. So I'm on tomorrow I'm going to dinner with a friend at a place here in town called Bar Taco. So Bar Taco feels sort of like an independent restaurant, but it's part of a larger group of them. And so it has kind of the benefits of a chain, but it doesn't have the stigma of a chain.
And people don't hate chains. I mean, let's remember, first of all, McDonald's is the #1 restaurant in the world.
Indeed, yes.
And then even hipsters go apeshit over like Chick-fil-A or In-N-Out Burger or Smash Burger, so chains.
And fast casual is...
Fast casual's blowing up. Yes. Yep. Chipotle, despite its foodborne illness problem, still a big deal. Yeah. But whether it's a donut chain or a burrito chain, hot new chains happen and cool people like them. And so it's still a thing. It's just old dated chains are old and dated like old dated brands are. So this is a brand that's got like 95% awareness. And Fridays was the original singles bar in New York City. That was where it started.
Okay.
Because people were having house parties and trying to meet each other as singles in the 50s. And so the inventor said, let's make this public so people can actually mingle. And then they got taken over by flair, consumed by their own deal with the devil with that. So the problem is a juicy problem. How do you reinvent a storied 60-year-old brand that's known now for crappy food and flair as opposed to being an exciting place to go and meet people? And we think we've got some ways through it. We're just launching, I can tell you this, we just launched a really neat little program for them for their new burgers. They're launching some really tasty new burgers. We've tried them and they're good. And the new idea is that we kind of admit that a lot of burgers are bad, including ours, and that's why we've reinvented our burgers. So for 1 week only in some test markets, you bring in your crappy, sad old burger from some other place, and we'll trade you for a free Sky High burger.
That's fun.
So it gets a little notoriety, gets a little attention.
Yeah, that cuts through the clutter.
Yeah. So it's fun stuff.
You've adopted 2 children.
Yes.
Why? How?
So many reasons. Yeah, kids are not a one reason because we adopted children because of the tax breaks.
Yeah, that's terrible math.
It doesn't pay out in the end. Although the tax breaks at the beginning are good. We adopted two children for lots of reasons. Okay. One of them was my wife had breast cancer.
Okay.
And so the chemo made it really hard for us to grow our own. So we looked into different options, and the medical options just seemed pretty intense and laborious. And then looking at the numbers, again, here I am, the numbers guy, there are 500,000 legal orphans in America at any given day. And they come in and out of the system. But roughly 500,000 children who don't have any legal parent or guardian.
I had no idea it was that many.
Yeah. And then you add at least another million on top of that who are still legally connected to a parent or guardian, but those parents or guardians beat them, abuse them, neglect them, and just they're separated from them because they're not good parents or guardians.
Okay.
So there are a lot of people in need of a home. And my wife and I were, 2 people who had a home to give. And it's one of those cheesy kind of Orphan Annie stories of we had home, we wanted to have a family, and so we chose to do foster care adoption through Boulder County Social Services.
So you is this, not to be crass, but you kind of try out a bunch of kids, they come through and
they do that.
You care for them, and then if feels like there's a connection, you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
They call it respite care, I think, which is like babysitting.
Okay.
But yeah, you kind of meet them and you figure out whether that you're up for that, because some kids have a lot of big challenges and some parents aren't up for those big challenges and some are. So we were pretty open-ended, and we ended up with 2 little kids who were siblings, full siblings, 1.5 and 2.5.
Okay.
And that was 11 years ago.
So you have teens, preteens?
Tweens.
That's what they are now. Yeah, tweens.
They're killing us.
So I think it's a hard time to be a tween. It's always hard to be a tween.
Yes.
But it seems especially hard to be a tween nowadays. These
There's
phones.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, now sex and drugs are just 2 of the 3 or 4 topics. And phones is another big topic. Screens, you could say.
Yeah, I guess screens is the way to think about
it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're addictive. They plug you into things that are unsafe. Mm-hmm. They connect you to anonymous strangers.
Yeah, people are mean on them.
Oh, there's all kinds of drama. It actually exacerbates and amplifies drama.
I could see that.
Absolutely.
And being 12 or 13 is already hard enough.
Oh, yeah. And then trying to figure out what people mean over text when you can't see them in their face.
I have this. I'm 48 and I have this problem.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you still can't read facial expressions.
Don't worry, we're wrapping this up. Well, that's great. I knew you had kids. I don't think I knew they were adopted until I was prepping for this.
Yeah.
All right. 2 quick questions. What are you reading, watching, or listening to that's really good? That really stands out to you? Not just the normal good, but you're wow.
Watching, we don't watch a ton. Reference the earlier tween conversation. Mm-hmm. But One thing I'm watching, which I think is just really well done, is Grace and Frankie.
Yeah.
Netflix original series.
I know Baron Vaughn, isn't he play the son, an adopted son?
I don't know him by name, but there are two sons. One's black, one's white.
The black one.
Okay.
I know Baron. He's on that show.
Got Buddy.
Is that what he goes by?
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine.
Fabulous writing. It's kind of like Modern Family for the geriatric set. The Gen X.
Were you a big Golden Girls fan when you were younger?
No, I never was. I was definitely more of a Fantasy Island guy. But Grace and Frankie, great writing. It almost has whiplash between poignant moments and hilarious moments. Okay. It's great.
And it's the premise. I'm going to try the premise. You tell me if it's correct. Two couples, they're friends. The men end up being gay, fall in love, leave the women behind,
That's
so to
right.
speak. And
That's
there's
right.
these two women who are finding their way as 60, 70 somethings.
Yep.
Yes.
And then it's the whole extended family.
Okay.
So the two men are Martin Sheen and Sam Waterman.
Okay.
They were law partners for decades.
Okay.
Finally came out of the closet, divorced their wives, and got married. You follow them.
I see.
You also follow.
It is very Modern Family-like. Yes, I see.
You also follow Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda.
Yes.
And they're the wives, and Lily is a total new age hippie, and Jane Fonda is an uptight bitch, essentially. But they're suddenly the odd couple because they're living in the beach house.
Okay.
And they are thrown together dealing with the aftermath of having their husbands leave.
I see.
With each other. And then they both have kids. Both families have kids, and you get to know those kids as well. Super fun. So I'm watching that. That's great. Reading. I'm reading a really, really neat series. It's a comic book series, which is another one of my
Yeah, you have a big graphic novels kick.
Yeah. I love graphic novels. It's called The Unwritten. And I want to say it's by not Jim Carrey. Mike Carey. The Unwritten is a really fun take on Harry Potter, you could say. This author who does a wizarding story, except that there's actually, is it true or not? Because it's his son is the Harry character, the author. And then it turns out that the magic comes to life based on how much people believe in it.
Oh, interesting.
So it's really a very fascinating story about the power of story. Going back to, is it Goebbels in Nazi Germany and propaganda and Moby Dick and Herman Melville and of course the Bible and Cain and Abel and the stories that continue to persist. And how is it the belief is a binding part of culture and makes things real, makes things as real as magic. So it's really funky and intellectual, but it's also a great page turner.
Is that the kind of comic book that's written both for adults and kids?
Yeah.
You could read it at both levels.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see.
I mean, comics, it's funny. People think of comics equals superheroes, but that's like saying movies equals superheroes.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
It's just a medium.
Correct.
Yeah, that's
correct.
Right.
But anyway, those are two things.
And then also you just delivered to me as a gift a book that came by way of a colleague of yours, a friend of yours.
Yes. So the book is called The Humans.
It's a novel. It's by Matt Haig, Haig.
Yes. My colleague, Kelly McCormick, she's a brilliant creative, and she was just written up as one of the top creatives in the country to watch for.
Okay.
She's great. And our company, as part of, getting her written up in the Ad Age article it was, I think, or Ad Week, kind of played a trick on her and said one of the questions from the interviews was, what's your favorite book? What's your most inspiring book? And not a business book, but just what was your favorite? So she said, this book, The Humans by Matt Haig. And that wasn't actually a question for the article. That was a question for our company. And we bought a ton of copies.
Oh, that's nice.
And gave it out to everyone in the company. Now, I asked Kelly to sign it for me, and she's like, but I'm not the author. And I was like, yes, but you're a 30 under 30 or whatever they call you. Really creative. So she signed it, not the author.
I see. That's fun.
So it's supposed to be a great book, according to Kelly.
All right. Well, I look forward to reading it. I don't read much fiction, so I'm excited about that. Last question.
Yes.
I ask everyone this, so no pressure. The secret to success that everyone knows but can't seem to do.
The secret to success that everyone knows.
They just can't seem to do it.
But can't seem to do. Working when you don't want to.
Oh my goodness. That is so fitting for me today.
It's kind of shit simple. And I heard it once, and I can't remember who said it, but it was
shit simple. I love that term.
Yeah, the quote I heard was something like, the difference between an amateur and a pro is a pro still works when they don't want to.
Yes, I've heard that quote.
And that's true in sports. When you don't
everywhere.
Want to get out of bed, it's true as a writer.
Kids at Oberlin pounding on those pianos.
Absolutely. Academics working on their next publication, or marketers who have to come up with another idea to sell to a client. Like the hack only does it when they feel like it.
Yeah, when they're inspired.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the pro says, no, I'm going to do it. And I just keep doing it even when I don't want to.
I was thinking about that today because I'm working on a paper that I've been working on for too long. And so the excitement is gone, and the
thrill is gone.
The thrill is gone, but
honeymoon stage is over.
No doubt. Yep. But academia rewards closers.
Yes.
And so I was just working on that paper today, and I was thinking about how there's other things I want to do, but this paper's closest to publication. It's the one I should be spending most of my time on.
Yep.
And not falling in love with these baubles, as I call them, these exciting, shiny things.
Shiny objects.
These new ideas.
Yeah. I usually just have to trick myself into doing stuff I don't want to do because I don't want to do it.
Yeah. Mine is, so here's my hack for that problem, which is habits. So I just have a habit. I get up in the morning and I write, and my rule is I work on the thing closest to publication. Mm-hmm. And so it becomes more automatic.
Right.
I don't have to make the choice.
Right.
And so the thing that I don't really want to work on is the thing that I have to work on first, and then I can release myself and later in the day work on the more exciting kinds of things.
That's a good one. I try and do that. I've not developed any good habits. But I do have my hack, which is social binding. Okay. I just read an article about this, that the reason willpower is seen as so ephemeral and so hard to come by these days, and how there's so many articles about grit, like all of Angela Duckworth's work.
Yes, right.
And willpower, and how you can deplete your willpower if you use it in the morning, trying to, exercise, and then you don't have any later to avoid eating the cupcakes. And the notion is, well, we're social animals. We're not individual animals. So the easiest way to do stuff when you don't have the willpower is to just get into a pack that's doing it. And they'll just drag you along.
Yeah,
whether it's in the Peloton and you're biking with a group, well, you're going to bike as long as they bike. Or if I'm with a team that's working on a campaign, like, yeah, it's Sunday and I really don't want to be in the office. And it's now 6 o'clock or 7 or 8 and I really don't want to be here. But the social binding keeps me going.
It's interesting you say that about Sundays. I stole this idea from Darwin Metzger and Sarah Zarel, his partner. So Darwin's a previous guest on here. They call it Schmonday. So Schmonday is like this dirty little secret of academia. Is you come into the office on Sunday night,
right,
and you just take care of all the shallow work,
right,
that has been accumulating, the emails and the getting organized and the light tasks, so that you can hit the ground running on Monday. But one thing that helps me do Schmonday is I know that Darwin and Sarah are doing
right.
Schmonday.
Well, there you go.
And I often will just tweet Schmonday, and one of them will like it.
So
right?
the social bind has created a habit.
And they live in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
See, I hate Schmonday. I hate that idea because to me, that's like you're working before you're working. That's like the people when you say, do you have anything else to add? And they say, no. But just blah, 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 and they go on and on. Why don't you just say yes? Or before we begin, I just have a couple of things. No, you've just begun.
Yeah. I'm not advocating Schmonday. I like Schmonday, but it's not for everyone because it really is. But also I like the idea of working when other people aren't, and I like the idea of not working when other people are.
Right.
And that's one thing I have for this. Ethan, this was great. I knew it would be great. So thanks for not screwing it up.
Good.
It was very good.
Good.
And I will put, we talked about lots of things. I'll put all these in the exhibits as part of the blog post.
Wonderful.
Associated with this.
Well, ask me if you have any more questions. You can't find some sources. I probably have them in my brain. I can squeeze them out.
No sweat. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to visit petermcgraw.org for more information about our guest, show notes, and social media links. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with others. Join Dr. Peter McGraw next week for another fun, fascinating conversation on I'm Not Joking.